Hello, welcome to another episode of Drinking with Comics. My name is Shawn.
And I'm Mike
Mike has risen from the
with
darkness.
with an entrance like from hell.
Mike, what are we drinking? This is your choice.
New Holland Peach Space Machine. It's a hazy peach IPA. Now, I don't normally like IPAs, but I had this when we visited New Holland a couple of months ago, and it was delicious. I had two there. I haven't had it since, like in a can, so I don't know how it's going to hold up. But I was like,
Okay.
ooh. As soon as I had one, I was like, I'm going to get one for Shawn. Like, it was
Well,
that good. Like,
well, thank you
this
for
is
thinking of me.
something, yeah. Well,
Well,
of
New
course.
Holland is what else do they do?
So
Or am
Dragon's
I
Milk
thinking
is their big one.
Dragons? Okay, I'm thinking of I know what I'm thinking of. I'm thinking of New Glarus.
Yes, New Glarus is the one in Wisconsin. This is in Michigan, New Holland, Michigan,
Got it.
who's famous for their windmills and tulip festival, which is why we kind of went a week before the tulip festival. Um, I'd highly recommend going to anyone. Lovely little town, college town. A lot of great brew. Got this great brewery here. A lot of tulips, some windmills. What more do you
Dragon's
want,
Milk
Mike?
is that's been around a long time, and it's
Yeah,
like
it's
it's
tasty.
iconic. Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if you get that
Well,
in your end of the neck of the woods, but we should do that in the future.
okay. I might actually
Yeah.
I might be able to find it here. I have to
Yeah, I
look.
think
I
that's a
feel
little
like I
more.
can.
Yeah.
All
All
right, let's crack
right.
this fucker open.
I've been looking forward to this for a couple months now.
Oh, interesting.
I'm still pouring mine.
Interesting nose.
Oh, there we go. Okay. Oh yeah, that holds up to memory. A
Oh
little more.
wow, dude, there is
Yes.
so much peach once it's poured, and the nose. I haven't
Yeah.
even tasted it yet.
Yeah. You get the
Oh
IPA, but the peach really masks what's bad about the IPA. I will say this: I think it was better from the tap than it was in the can, but like not by much. You know,
yeah,
like I would definitely like. I might think seconds about getting this in the can again. I'm still looking forward to the other four I have left, but I would definitely hands down get this if I ever am New Holland to get it from the tap.
this is really interesting. The
Yeah,
the first sip, it started very IPA, and then the peach just washed it back. It was gone.
yeah.
Second sip, almost no IPA.
You don't get that the negatives of the IPA, which is like that bad aftertaste
Yep. Or
as
cotton.
much. Yeah, where like this is like the peach just kind of washes that away. It's a very
Man,
impressive. Yeah, I was shocked. I have a weird peach flavor. Um, I like the taste of peach, but then like peach always lets me down. So like whenever I see it in something, I'm like, ooh, peach, and then it's like, oh, that let me down. This was like one of those few occasions where it's like, ooh, this is good.
I will say I had some peaches last week and they were great. And I love peaches, but as I've gotten older, I don't quite have the tolerance for the skin anymore. It never used to bother me, but it's just I'm kind of like get the fuck off. And then
I
I feel
weirdly
like
like a canned peach,
yeah,
like
I like
canned
but
peach
but
flavor.
they're kind of a different thing though.
Yeah, exactly. It's that
It's
I think
so
that's the
weird.
flavor I'm always achieving for, where like fresh peaches is kind of like, okay, well this is good, but I want that cheap fucking 50-cent canned peaches that you buy at Aldi or something.
That always makes me think of Deadwood, where like whenever they'd have meetings and Swearingen would bring in peaches, and everybody be like, "Oh, there's peaches." It's like a delicacy in the Old West, canned peaches. Um, I think the best peach flavored anything I've ever had is, I mean, I haven't had it in 30 years, but I used to love, when I was a pothead, I used to love peach flavored Snapple tea.
Interesting.
Yeah, they just did it right, man. I'm not a big like iced tea drinker or whatever, but something about
Oh,
that.
tea is one of those things I cannot drink. Like coffee and tea are very much like, ugh. But like every time I see a peach tea, I'm just like, oh man, I wish I could drink tea. That sounds delightful.
Mm. Wow, this is really, and I'm not really one to like fruit and beer. You know, we've talked about this. It gives me pause. I have apprehension about it, but this is, I would love to taste
It
this on
it
tap.
works. Yeah. It works really well with like masking and kind of enhancing some of the things that like bringing out the good sides of an IPA without bringing out the while covering up the negatives, I guess you could say.
Yeah. Now, I don't know that this would be something like you'd want to drink a six pack of. That might
Mm.
be a bad idea.
Like I think I had to, and that was plenty for me.
Oh, okay. Well, we're situated. So, Mike, what are we talking about this week? You picked one and I picked one. What do you got?
Okay, so I picked Krypto. Probably one of
So,
my most favorite books of the year that I had to even force you to buy.
I, the Jay Lee cover is spectacular. I mean, I'm not one of these like Jay Lee can do no wrong, but it's really an example of like
It
why he's
captures
great.
that great um 50s-esque um sci-fi to it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but still being
Like,
very Jay. Like you look at it, and it's
yeah,
immediately Jay
it's
Lee. You
super
know.
Jay Lee, which is kind of weird to think like Jay Lee's doing a cover for a dog comic. Um, but that's what I like about this comic is like instantly when I heard that they're doing a Krypto comic, my first thought was the Krypto movie that came out a couple of months ago or a couple of years ago, featuring the voice of The Rock. Dwayne Johnson was doing the voice of Krypto, and he's going around talking. He's got his little dog friends. There's Bat
Oh, it was like
Dog
this
and
Super Pets movie, right?
Super Pets movie, which
Yeah,
wasn't
that's right.
that bad,
I
but
mean,
it was very much in line with what I would expect from a Krypto anything. Talking
okay.
dog, the dog's point of view. I love this comic book because Krypto does not talk. It is 100% just dog.
Yeah,
Like if you've had a if you're a pet owner and you've had a dog, this comic book is 100% for you because it's just dog expressions.
yes.
I love the fact that like the dialogue that you hear is so for spoiler for people that haven't read it yet, it takes place on Krypto or Krypton, and you got Superman's parents discussing building the rocket, and whenever you hear the dialogue, it's faded, and it
Yeah,
doesn't. It gets darker when it relates to Krypto. When they're like,
yeah.
"Oh, we gotta feed Krypto," and it gets dark, and Krypto's like, "Ooh, food," which is what you just instantly drew me in that this was a very much a real dog, a comic book about a real dog, and not a talking dog is going to solve a murder or
Yes.
um, like the various other, which are like Stray Dogs and those other books. They're perfectly fine books,
I love
but
Stray
no
Dogs.
one's but they all it's a talking dog.
Yeah, right, right. This is just a
You
straight up
know,
dog as we know
this
it.
is just a straight up dog. As you know, he has no communication skills. Everything's in his face, which is like the other best part about this book is like the first page you get is this great picture of a dog sleeping or Krypto sleeping, which is just
Yeah.
the sweetest freaking thing I've ever seen. Hats off to
Mike
Mike
Norton.
Norton. Yeah, like that's some like clearly you got the assignment. You looked at you had a pet dog or you found some dog pictures and clearly got the right thing. You didn't make him look cartoony.
Well, I mean, there's the whole issue. Like, there's a couple pages in, like the father is like scratching behind his ear,
Yeah.
or like when they're at the dog park with the other dog, or the best. I love the page with him cuddling the baby cow.
Oh, oh my God, it tears you apart.
Yeah, it's or the
Oh,
yawn.
sweet.
If you flip one more page, there's a page where he's like staring, and they when they first put him in the, so they put him in the like the backup or the kind of background plot is they're talking, his Superman's parents are talking about how the science committee or whatever won't listen to, they're telling them like our planet's gonna fucking die, and they're, I mean,
Yeah.
you know, it sounds relatable, and they're like, oh, whatever. So they're getting ready to like how do we get people off the planet? So they're going to do this test trip with the dog in a shuttle, and of course, this is the same shuttle that then they'll use for Superman.
Yeah.
Um, but when they first close the dog in the cockpit, the dog's like staring, and he just yawns, and it's
Yeah.
such an it's so awesome.
Like a
Oh
good chunk of that trip was him napping.
yeah, right. It the the only thing about it that gives me pause, no pun intended.
Okay.
Um, the last page. I'm just like,
I
oh,
kind of rolled my eye on that a little bit too. Although, like, it is a very young. Do we want to give the spoiler to this?
no, but I mean,
Okay,
I feel
but
like
it
you
is a
could
very
fucking
young.
guess.
Yeah, like,
It's a young version of that character, but I still
yeah.
am just like,
I kind of rolled my eyes on that too, but it kind of intrigued me. Like, okay, what's this? How's this going to play out? Like it's not super. And the other thing I liked about it, it's clearly set in the 50s.
is it?
It's
I
not,
didn't
yeah.
even.
There's if you
Oh
look at the
yeah,
car, yeah, it's an
yeah.
old 50s car. So it's, it is a Superman that comes around in the 60s or 70s or even 40s or 50s. I don't know the time lingo. That character is very young, so he still has a couple years ahead of him before he crosses paths with Superman. Um, but even then, like, it's still like a cute thing. I can't wait to see what happens next. It's like you're gonna hang out with that character till a squirrel.
You know, I kind of I wasn't digging in my heels because I didn't want to read it, but I do have this like a couple months ago I bought, I don't know, there was some Doctor Doom comic book. I don't even, now there's a bunch of Doctor Doom titles. I don't know what this was,
Yeah.
like The World According to Doom or something. I don't fucking know. And I bought it and I read it and I was like, I couldn't, I can't even remember it. I probably didn't remember it the next day. And it's been bugging me because I'm like, I got no, what short box do I put this in? Because I have little space, and also like where I have this filing system now, and I don't want to buy another short box. So I'm like, well, I mean, I'm going to eventually have to buy another short box because I keep buying comics. But I'm like, where does this go? And I had nowhere to put it. And then now that Imperial and a couple other Marvel comics have come up, I'm like, okay, I guess I can put it. But like, I've become very specific about. So I'm like, dude, I have no idea where this is going to go. But I'll just deal with it. It can go in the box with Batman or something. I don't fucking know.
Yeah. Is it like high fidelity where it's like you're how you doing it by year
A little
or
bit
think year or by what was it, like alphabetical order or by year or whatever? And then I think his response was emotional.
emotional.
Sorting
I
my
mean,
things emotionally.
you know, it's really hard when you've been collecting this long. Like I have a spreadsheet, and you know, like all my Rick Remender stuff is together, even if it's Uncanny Avengers, right? Even though,
Okay.
I mean, I don't have a lot of Avengers stuff anyway, but you know, like I deviate from certain things, or like I have my like 80s and cosmic Marvel box, right? But then at some point stuff starts to drift, and I can see this already coming. I and I'm not complaining because I actually really enjoy filing comics and going through them, but I'm gonna have to pull all my short boxes out and like rethink the distribution. And it's just, dude, it's just hard. It's like, where do you put all that shit, right? Like, I mean, talk about first world problems. Fuck me. Hard to find my comics. First world problem. I hired Nancy comments. First world problem. Can't put up a buck. First world problem. Sire don't give a fuck. First world problems.
At the end of the day, I like this is like how do I file this thing? Because I do this filing in my own weird way that I love. And then me, I'm just like, dude, I have filed so many comic books over the last 20 years. I don't even want to do it anymore. Like, I can't even like. I look at an X-Men book and just go like, where am I putting this now?
Yeah. No, I could
I
feel it.
mean,
Hey,
I buy trades now, so it's kind of like alphabetical order on a shelf, which I love. So much
yeah.
easier.
But also like so you do alphabetical order on the shelf, but do you do so I don't do alphabetical order, but I do by creator for sure. So I've got like my Garth Ennis, which would be mainly like Preacher and uh Hellblazer. And then all the other Garth Ennis stuff like The Boys, that's all single issues. So that's in a box.
I literally have to do it the way I do it at work. Because if I don't
Hmm.
do it the way I do it at work, things are going to get fucked up at work.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, like I can't go emotionally or by artists or something because I have one system. That's the system I'm trained to do and the system I get paid to do. So I have to do it that way or I can't do it at all.
See, now that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, now, like the comic bug had, and I'm not saying this is better or worse. I'm just saying for a different side of the coin. So they had like one side of their shelves for trades was, I think it was like was it DC and then maybe Image, I think, and then the other side. So if you start here, it's like let's say DC and Image, and you come around and it would be like uh they had some creator stuff, so they'd have Grant Morrison, they'd have Garth Ennis, and it was
Hmm.
partitioned out.
I
um
think like for us, so like at Tinley, when I used to work at Tinley years ago, I actually broke down and like did all the Marvel stuff in one rack because I noticed something that like all the Marvel readers that shop there weren't buying um what wasn't deviating outside of the Marvel section. So there
okay.
was no point in doing that. But at the same time, like the things I was hoping to do, which was like, oh, maybe they'll buy when they're looking for Secret Wars, they'll buy Secret Invasion because it's right there. But they weren't doing it didn't matter because they weren't doing that regardless. It was just it made it easier for them, which is fine. But then like everything else in the store they didn't care about. So I actually calm back on that theory and think that basically straight up alphabet works. But you got to put all the Will Eisner stuff together because that should be together. You know what I mean? Like Neil Gaiman, because he has like the weird little one shots, should be together. But at the same
so
time, like, yeah, all the Neil Gaiman stuff is all the minor Neil Gaiman stuff is together, but Sandman's still under S, you know.
okay, so that
Yeah,
makes sense. That
a
that
little
that
bit,
was going to
yeah.
be my question, is how does Sandman
I don't
fall?
I don't think there's a correct answer for anyone in this
No, it's
matter
just
because
it's
it's hard when you get to like weird things. Because no one's going to buy. And I go back to Neil Gaiman again, like Neil Gaiman's Harley Quinn book. If it's in under H, no one will buy it because they don't know it exists. But if you look under Neil Harlequin, not Harley Quinn, Harlequin. He had like a Dark
oh,
Horse
I was like, I
one
would think
shot.
that the character. Okay, got
Yeah.
it.
So he had a one shot of that, and no one would find that under H. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, right. It would
And I
have to
think
be
there's
under
some
Neil
like
Gaiman.
I think there's like something like Ed Brubaker. We kind of do that a little bit too with this criminal series because they're not, it's criminal, but it all has different names, if I recall.
That's really an interesting topic of discussion because I think of when you said the Neil Gaiman one shot, the Harlequin, that makes me think of like Warren Ellis, like the only person that's going to buy Lazarus Churchyard is the person coming in to buy Lazarus Churchyard.
Hmm.
Filing is interesting, and you can never quite, like with short box, I can never quite get it right. Like there's always something that won't fit, or and it's like, oh
Yeah.
god, or like my Jeff Lemire box,
Now,
there's
are you using
strays.
just straight white boxes?
Yeah, well, yes, I buy a couple of the like I have the most recent, like what do you call those, the fancy boxes with the art,
Just
like
art
art book.
boxes. Yeah.
So I bought the Something Is Killing the Children, and I put all my Tinian in there.
Okay.
But that's a good example where it's not full, so I have stuff in there like Shaolin Cowboy and a couple other things that will eventually have to be moved as it fills up. But for right now, they're just hanging out there because there was space. I have a couple Marvel, like I've got a Venom and a Moon Knight and an Alien and a Spider Man. Um,
Oh, I wish. they had art boxes when I was still collecting single issues because I might still have single issues then. But like the whole like idea of like, ooh, Alien all A's, Batman all B's, like the idea that I could just look at that box, see the character on it, and go, that's that letter, would excite me a lot. But I don't have that.
But it
I
also
got rid of
falls
my books
apart.
a long time ago. Yeah.
It falls apart because like Beta Ray Bill is one of my favorite Marvel series of the last like 10 years, and
He
I don't
goes
have a
under
box.
Thor.
But I wouldn't buy a Thor box because I don't have hardly any Thor comics. I read it for a little while when
Well,
Donny
yeah,
Cates was
but I
writing it, but
mean, like, you don't need like necessarily a Thor box, or you can use a Transformer box. You know what I mean? It doesn't need to be like all
no,
Venom
I know.
books go in a
Oh, okay,
Venom
okay,
box. Yeah.
okay.
Or, like TUV Venom, because I like Venom more than I like
Yeah,
Thor.
okay, that's fair.
Yeah, I mean, it would just depend. I haven't put much thought in it because I don't have single issues. It was just one of those things when they started coming out. I was like, oh man, that would have been kind of sweet to have like a wall of art boxes
Yeah.
where I can go like, okay, that's that, that, and that, as opposed to when I was actually collecting comics and had a wall of white boxes and it was just kind of honestly kind of ugly looking.
It's ugly and also it takes up a lot of space. And like what I had to do was I've numbered all my boxes and I have a spreadsheet so I know box 16 and I
Hmm.
put whenever I get stickers I put stickers all over the boxes. So like
Well, which is a good idea. I think I did
just
that for a
to
while
make it
too,
more
just to
colorful.
kind of,
But
yeah.
so like if I have a wax track sticker on box 16 in my spreadsheet, it says box 16 and in parentheses wax tracks and then everything listed. Now sometimes I move stuff and I don't write down that I moved it. And then I go back to the spreadsheet and I'm like, oh, I know that's in 16. I'm like, God damn it, it's not 16. I'm like, God damn it, Shawn. And when I do that shit, it's usually if I'm drinking late at night and I'm reading comics, I'm like, oh, just put it in this box here, it's fine. I'm aware on some level I'm fucking future Shawn. I'm like, fuck you, buddy. And the future Shawn will be like, you fucking bastard. So,
Oh, I have the library problem where like I'll take a book off the shelf, read it, and then just stick it in a stack.
oh man.
And then 6 years later, I'll go look back at it. It's like, oh, what the fuck? Why is this stack here like
Or you go to
this?
look for it. You know what that's like? That's like
Yeah.
taking a CD out of the case, listening to it in your car, and putting it in a different case and forgetting about it. And then 2 years later, you're like, oh man, I want to listen to whatever Mudhoney, and you're like, where's the CD? I've had those like over a year where it's like 5 years later, I find the CD. I'm like, oh my god, what? Whatever. It's funny.
Or currently, I have my main bookshelf in the living room with all the books on it, which I've barely touched. And then I have the more like new release shelf in the bedroom where I use it to grab. We're like, okay, this is stuff I'm going to read, so it's on
Right.
that shelf. And I still like, and I'm too lazy to go and file it into the main the main rack, so it just sits in my bedroom, even though I've read it like 6 years ago. Yeah.
Dude, I love the thing like because I did retail at Borders for 5 years, and I love how retail like you are a retailer through and through because you just referenced the new release rack in your
Yeah.
bedroom. Oh, and it's just like I would like if I have space, I'll do face outs with my like novels, right? I have tons of bookshelves, do face out because that's what we did at Borders. It's like, yeah, you got
Well,
space, put a face out,
and then there's the other issue of like there's normal trade side on my rack, and then the bottom shelf's all the oversized stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And my new release, because I've been reading these the Marvel Black, White, and Bloods.
Yeah.
I've been collecting those, like the Treasury oversized ones, so they all sit there because I have no shelf space on my big size shelf, so they're stuck in my bedroom, probably permanently because it's the only place I can store them. And every day I look at them, and go like, "Ooh, look at all those blood red and black, white, and bloods. Look at those."
Well, that's like I think it's Last Ronin, where I still don't know that there's a bag and board that actually fits that size because it's
No, there
not.
is not.
There's not, I don't know what it's like. It's not magazine, it's not treasure. I don't know what it is, right? So, and then the first Last Ronin series, they had an ash can comic that was an even weirder size and it's thin and brittle, right? So I'm like, what the fuck? So I have those on my fucking bookshelf, and the treasure,
Because you have nowhere else to put them.
the oversized shit. So I now have enough bookshelves. I'm running low, but I have one where I like really. I get these. I don't know. I order them from Amazon. There's 3 shelves. You put them together or whatever, and the bottom shelf is, like the bottom space is really tall because I have this Anthrax graphic novel that, I mean, it's probably the size you're talking about. It's fucking bigger than anything else I have, except maybe I have a really oversized. No, actually, I'm looking at there's a Larry Hama GI Joe Greatest Hits that's hardcover. It's even small. The Anthrax is fucking enormous. So I just had to suck it up and make one shelf that size, and it's like that's at the far left, and everything else goes like this because nothing else is that fucking tall. But whatever, I love it, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I think mine's like, A, B, C, D, and then the entire bottom shelf is all the oversized omnibuses. And then you get to a point where it's like, okay, I'm gone to omnibuses, but then you have like absolutes, which are slightly bigger than an omnibus. So then I have to have a different shelf for those. And then because like there's one that shelf with the omnibus is slightly higher than the other ones, the shelf above that's all my littler books, like my manga,
Right,
or no, not necessarily manga. I think I have like 2 or 3 manga on there, and just weird little size books that I've gotten over the years that are too small. Well, they aren't small. Well, they're not too small to fit on the other side, but it makes more sense to keep them together
right,
space
right.
wise. So like and it's pure madness, and I don't try to think about it.
Yeah, but it is. I notice if I'm having a super anxiety ridden day at work because I work in my office, which is also my nerd dungeon because I don't like the term
Yes.
man cave, so I call it nerd dungeon.
Ooh,
Um,
but man cave
I,
sounds more sexual.
it, So I will just like stand up from my desk and start filing comics. Like even if they're all
Well,
filed, I'll just start moving shit around or whatever. It's just a way that I decompress. So it's and I think it's the same. I think a lot of people are like that.
I do that for a living, so I don't have that desire when I get
Well,
home. Yeah.
if you're watching this and you find some kind of innate joy or peace, zen in filing your comics, bagging and board, whatever it is, arranging your
For
bookshelves,
free,
let us know.
come on by Amazing Fantasy. We have plenty of work for you for doing for free. Because I can't do it anymore.
So
And it's funny too, because like the other thing is like when you get to work, and I feel bad about it every time I look at it, but there's no one at the bookstore that wants to do it.
mhm.
Our X-Men and Spider-Man section are a wreck. Like I cannot make heads and tail of X-Men at all. Like where should this go? Like, and it makes sense to put like X-Force here, X-Men there. But then like my brain kind of wanders off onto X-Men. But then I get to Batman. It's like it all makes sense to me. It's perfectly clear because I like Batman.
So wait, is the
Perfectly
X-Men
order.
confusing because it's like, okay, it's a given they all start with X, but then do you go alphabetical by the next letter? So it's like X Factor would be before X-Men because it's F before
Yes.
M. Okay.
X Factor, then X Force. But where does Cable fit in all that? Because you
What?
have to keep Cable by the X Men. So does Cable go before X Men, or does he go in a little section before that? And then you got Mystique, and then you got like No More Mutants, or that's not a title of a book, but like those
Whatever. It might as well
various
be.
things. And there's like X Men manga, and there's like new X Men, and then there's like then you have the Korra. What do you call that? The series you love, the Kokora,
Oh,
the Island.
Krakoa.
Cocoa series, all those books are in like some sort of weird alphabetical order on themselves because they're made to be read in order and cross over with the other books. And yet there's also a different version where it's like the non like cocoa version. Like I don't know, it loses me at a point.
I could see that happen. The
Yeah,
cable's an interesting. I mean, my knee jerk reaction is even though C comes before X, anything that's a spin-off should be after all the X titles, right? So you'd go through
like
all the
miscellaneous. Yeah,
yeah. So Cable before Mystique or whatever,
yeah.
but the Krakoa could all. So I never understood, and I haven't really, you know, my understanding of the way they released the Hickman stuff, at least, was they didn't collect like it 6 issues by title. They collected it as a, so it's like the first trade is like issue one of this title, 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 blah blah blah, and then next trade is the same thing, which would drive me nuts because I'm like, I don't want to read it all. I only want to read what
Yeah,
Hickman wrote or
but
whatever.
then they
So I've
did
never read it all.
release. So they did release them as trade as the regular single title. So all the Hellions are in one trade, all the
Oh,
Order things are in the other. Put those on a fucking shelf.
you know, I never, the one thing about that, and I never read it, but I know they made like Marauders a tale, like a title.
Yeah.
And I always thought that was weird because I understand that they like, and I forget. So there's a character named like Black Crow, I think, and he was
Okay.
originally called Scalp Hunter, but that was deemed like insensitive. I'm not saying whether it is or not. I don't know. But all of these people, like, the thing with Krakoa, it made like there were no bad mutants anymore, really. And if there were, they got like, it was few and far between. But I'm just thinking, like, I don't know, these people like killed a bunch of people. So it's weird that like, and the Marauders was like, they killed all of the Morlocks or most of them, right? So I always thought that
Okay.
was weird that like, why would the X-Men make a team called the Marauders?
Well,
I don't
I
know.
think the idea is, and I don't know how true this is. Someone explained to me years ago, is if you don't put the title out, you lose the rights. So
Yeah, but
every
Marauders
once
was
in a
never a
while,
title.
well, I mean, it's still they lose the rights to the word Marauders. Probably the reason why I get Ghost Rider comics every couple of years because they want to keep his legal name, not because it sells well outside of me.
I think the perpetuity thing is only for licensing. So in other words, Marvel's never going to lose the rights to Spider-Man. I could be wrong, but I think because they own it.
Well, I
However,
mean, eventually when it becomes public domain,
when
but
it
I
becomes
mean
public,
that's something different. Yeah.
but like famously, there's well, like Sony, or the best example I can think of is Dimension Films owned the Hellraiser license, right? And every couple years they would put out a movie and called Hellraiser, and in a lot of you can read about this. They would buy a script that was just some shitty horror movie and literally stick Pinhead in 5 minutes of it and call it Hellraiser because they had to or they would lose the rights.
Yeah.
Sony had the same thing with Spider-Man. They had to keep making movies because it's you have the rights for this long in perpetuity. If you go X amount of months or years or whatever without making one, you lose it. So they
Yeah.
were always, which is why they stuck all those characters in that first Wolverine movie, Gambit and Deadpool and all that shit, because they were worried about losing the rights on all those characters. So they just threw them all into that fucking thing
Well,
and ruined that
I think by
movie.
the time the Deadpool movie came out, that Wolverine Deadpool movie, like Disney owned it all anyway, so it didn't
Yeah, well,
matter.
exactly.
Yeah.
So it didn't matter anymore. But back when Sony or whoever, Fox or
Yeah.
whatever owned it, it was a different thing.
Yeah.
Wow, we've gone to some strange places.
Did you see the kind of related but unrelated? I'm sure you heard that Marvel and DC are crossing over again, right?
I did actually just hear that. That's so weird.
So there's the Superman. There's the Marvel version of Deadpool versus Batman is going to have backup stories. And one of the backup stories, well, there's two interesting ones that really caught my eye in the backup stories, which kind of made me sad that they're backup stories and not actual issues. But the first one is there's a Krypto versus Jeff the Shark, which is going to be freaking amazing.
Dude, I won't read that, but makes me happy they made it because that's like they made that for you. That's how I feel. I feel like somebody
Yeah,
was like, let's make Mike's dreams come true.
Crypto, even though it's going to be very cartoonish, both those animals do not talk, so it's going to be a lot of fun. And the other one, which I thought was interesting, was Daredevil meets Green Arrow, written by Kevin Smith.
No, that makes sense.
Yeah, which makes sense. But like as a backup story, I'm a little let down that it's only going to be a few pages and not like an actual full-on comic.
That's crazy.
I know, but like
Well, maybe
such a
down
good
the
idea to have
road.
those two. Yeah, I don't
I
know.
I I won't be reading any of that. That's I mean, I remember that amalgam shit. I didn't read it, but I
Oh,
remember it from like the 90s, and that shit was fucking
I
whack.
got bad news for you. We're reading Batman versus Deadpool because Grant Morrison's writing it.
That's no longer a draw for me. But if you want to do it, I'll read it. But that would
I'm gonna
not
make
get
you
me,
do it.
dude.
I'm gonna make you do it.
I would look at that on the shelf and be like, next. Yeah, I would. That
Go.
would
You're gonna
no
look at that shelf
longer.
and go, God damn it, Mike! Why are you making me buy this?
No, I'll give it a whirl. So the other book we're going to talk about, this was one I was waiting for. So this Chris Condon writes That Texas Blood, which he does with Jacob Phillips, John Phillips' son. I just fucking love that book. I wish it would come back. I know it'll come back eventually, but man, that is a book that like the first arc was great. They took time off. Second arc came and I was like, oh my God, how is this like 40 times better than the third one was even better? And oh my God, they did that prequel series. I forget the name of that. That was one. It took me forever to. I actually haven't read that yet. I have all the issues. You helped me get them. My shop, like I don't
Oh,
think anybody in Tennessee read that book, so I
I
had a
don't
hard
think
time getting
anyone
it.
knew that was That Texas Blood either.
I don't think so either.
That was like a weird title that like I think I didn't even know until you brought it up that that was like a sequel or related to.
It's like a prequel. It tells the story of
Yeah,
that
and then
area before, like back in like cowboy times or
yeah,
whatever.
and then I think a couple other customers like, hey, do you have that book? It's really this book I like, and I was like, what?
Enfield Gang Massacre, I think that's the name of it.
Yes, that's it.
I I got to crack that out. I just realized another thing with having so many books and they're all filed away or whatever. It's like sometimes oversights happen, right? So I had a
Hmm.
couple issues. It took me months to get the other ones because you were pulling them for me, and anyway, whatever. So Chris Condon writes that, and he just did a one-shot western for Oni Press, which I loved. I forget the name of it. It was really good. Um, New book from Image, News from the Fallout. Art by Jeffrey Allen Love. I'm totally unfamiliar with Jeffrey Allen Love. I love the art in this book. What do you think of this?
I like the art. I like those black and white, very sketchy looking, creepy looking. My only complaint art wise was there's like the scene where everyone starts turning into the monsters. I couldn't tell what the fuck was going on for the life of me.
Yeah, and you pick it up a couple panels or a couple pages later, but there
Yeah,
was a few moments in that melee that's happening where I was like, because he like that general or drill instructor was ever yelling at the guy, and then the guy like changes and attacks him, but then there was like I got lost for a minute.
yeah. There's this whole like I know what's going on because I grew up in the '80s and toxic fear will change you into a monster,
Yes.
toxic waste, nuclear fallout, and all that stuff, which is 100% what this book's about. Um, but yeah, there is that point, and the art's beautiful. It's like this, like creepy, scary, scratchy. Like I would love to see this animated in some weird way.
So, dude, yeah, absolutely,
Just so
absolutely.
like, and the story itself is like, no offense to the writer, it's very basic, but it does what it's supposed to do. It's just a
Well,
B horror movie,
I think it
you
may
know.
become more complex because so the basic premise here is it like starts out 1962 and we're at Gaines Army Base, which is somewhere in southern Nevada, and there's this general that has ordered an atomic test, but he moves the atomic test so that it's right on top of his soldiers
The idea is like we need to find out how this weapon works on people, so
on
we'll just
people.
use our own soldiers. You know, the typical government, big military bad thing. I'm not defending the military or government in that
No, I know.
statement. It's just that '80s
Yes, yes, yes.
horror movie that the government and all that stuff is doing something bad on you, and um, that yeah, it was just, this is the night of the comet monster thing, whatever, that turned everyone to monsters. But I just couldn't tell that they were turning to monsters because it's just it's the one thing where the art kind of failed the storytelling in the fact that like because it's so scratchy and because it's so black and white, I don't know what's going on other than there's a black blur there.
Well, also, I think they're showing that there's an evolution of change. So when
Yeah.
you first see them and they're like monsters and you don't know they're monsters, later when he's at the diner or right before the diner, they look more monstrous. So you're like, oh,
Yes.
now I understand, right? Like
Yeah.
early on, they just kind of had exaggerated hands or whatever, and then you get later on, and they look like they're like walking on all fours or whatever.
Yeah.
Um,
And to be clear, like I really like this artwork,
yeah,
but the drawback is the artwork is very limited what the detail is, which
yeah.
makes it kind of cool in itself. But because it's so limited, I don't know if someone's transforming into a zombie, werewolf,
Well, no,
monster, toxic Avenger. I don't know.
so I think the thing here though is like I can see, once you read all the way through, you get it. So I think that
Yeah,
just may be growing
100%.
pains for the first issue.
Yeah,
Um, because then there's hindsight, but so he basically moves the test. But the thing I really liked about this is it shows and it really I feel like it really resonates with the time that we live in because it shows like this general sitting in his office like whatever, he's not going to be affected. And then you've got this, and I
yeah.
probably have my ranks wrong, but the guy that's like the captain of the squad or whatever,
Sergeant,
he
maybe. I think it
he's
was like
like
a drill sergeant.
he's like where the general wants to test this on you. And everyone's like,
Yeah.
yeah. And then like the one guy's like, wait, what? And then they're like, well, did I fucking stutter? And he doesn't say that, but it's basically goes into the drill instructor kind of thing. Like, if they say that they're going to do this and you say yes, sir, and blah blah blah, and you see this blindly following orders, it's like you realize you're following orders. Like they're going to drop a fucking bomb on you, and it
I kind
shows
of
a
got the vibe it
good.
wasn't the bomb was being dropped on him as if it was more or less like a couple blocks away.
Yeah, well, yes. I mean, it's
But
not
it was
being
the
dropped on them, but
fallout. It
the
was the definite
fallout.
fallout from the whatever they were because they were like the snow is it's snowing red, which isn't
Yes,
normal fallout. It's usually like gray ash.
right.
So it's a different thing they followed on them. Once again, the art kind of does it a disservice because you don't know what they're talking about unless they tell you.
Yeah, right,
Um,
right. That's true. But so I thought I didn't have a problem with the writing because also I think there's
no,
going to be, and I'm not saying you had a problem with it, but I feel like knowing Chris Condon from reading the other stuff, so there's something about this black rock because if you go to the end of the book, there's like a redacted file here. It's like top secret handling, and
that that was a rock. I thought it was an apple.
well, I didn't even know what it was. I paid it no mind the first time through, but they
Hmm.
say something in this about increasingly erratic, obsessed with a porous black rock of unknown origin he apparently discovered on the base. And that's what he's holding at the beginning. And he's like, the most beautiful thing I ever saw. So I think there's going to be something else here. I think it'll be bigger than just like this crazy general that wanted to do this. Um, but I really dug it, and I just like the whole aesthetic. And yes, there's storytelling wise, it leaves a little bit to be desired up front, but I think it all will come out in a wash. And
Oh yeah, I think at the end when you know what's going on, it takes a couple panels to know what's going on. But in itself, I think the artwork is as much as like I complain about the artwork. I think the artwork's perfect for the story. I think
yeah,
the story's
absolutely,
perfect for the artwork. It could have used a little thing. I don't know if there was necessarily a way they could do that with that artist. I don't think that artist has that ability to. Not saying he's a bad artist, just not
no,
that
but also
like
you
his
play to
art
the
ability
strengths,
couldn't.
right?
Yeah, like it's dark, it's gritty, it's very one dimensional,
Yeah, in a way, yeah,
scratchy
yeah. But
artwork.
but it is
Um,
its
yeah,
strength. It is totally one dimensional, but
yeah,
that's not a knock, and it is its strength. And it'd
no,
be like you wouldn't ask Edward Gorey to draw a Superman book. It would just not make
exactly.
any, it would make no sense. So
It'd be interesting. You put the nose on it, though. It's like very scratchy Edward Gorey
it
artwork.
is. Yeah, it is. I that just
That's
kind of
I
came to
couldn't put
me.
my finger on it. Yeah, exactly. I couldn't put my finger on what it was. It's like Edward Gorey, but like even less detailed.
Yeah. Oh, I want to go flip
Um,
through my Edward Gorey book right now.
I just want to go watch PBS beginnings of the most
Yeah.
boring show in the world, but the
Yeah,
beginning
but
is
the
like
beginning,
amazing.
dude, as a kid, I would always be like, watch the beginning, and then you'd be like, what the fuck? What are these fucking British people talking about while they're eating a roast? Like, Jesus. Kippers, what are kippers? Who cares? That's
Can
a
we get
murder,
back
I
to the
tell you.
can we get back to the cartoon? The cartoon's amazing. Let's watch the cartoon.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, what? Yeah, God, I remember as a kid being like, wait, why does the cartoons? Well, like Pink Panther, the original Pink Panther, right?
Yeah.
Where you had like the cartoon and then it goes to live action. You're like, wait, what?
Well, the sad thing about like what was it, Murder Mystery?
Um,
Oh, whatever
uh,
the fuck it was.
Mystery Theater, I don't know, something
Mystery
like
Theater,
that.
Murder Mystery Theater, whatever. And you would be like, it would be on Sunday night. You'd be flipping through the channel looking for something to watch. And then every time you'd be like, ooh, what the heck is this? And then you see the murder, the guy in the black and white cartoon, and he's murdering somebody or something. You'd be like, this looks good. And then it turns into this boring guy like,
Yeah,
honey, the roast is overcooked.
yeah.
I think I must murder you. And it's so
that's a that's a pretty good
disappointing.
summation of how, I never thought of this before, but how, picture Lydia from Beetlejuice, right? Like I
Yeah.
picture every proto goth in the 80s, like just recording that intro and just watching it like over and over, like looping it or something like.
I want to say, to be fair, I saw like a TikTok-y, Reelsy thing where it was like people going like, "How many of you out there?" Which was describing the same thing that I described, which is why I kind of nailed it. But like, how many people you out there like so excited to watch this cartoon and just to realize you're watching like a bunch of
Yeah,
stuck-up British people talking
yeah,
about
frumpy
murder?
frumpy British people with their roast. Horseradish.
Like you'd turn on like an hour later and it'd be like Doctor Who. He's like, "Oh, what's this crazy robot?" And then this
Yeah, it's
like
like it's
boring
a
British guy would talk about some roast.
dude, Doctor Who. That shit, I'll never forget the first time I saw that. I'm like, that's not a robot, sir. That's a fucking trash can. Fuck you. Like I didn't like Star Trek because I approached Star Wars and Star Trek like Cubs and socks, and so I'm like Star Trek. I had my moments with it, but by and large, I just turned my nose up at it. But when I saw Doctor Who, I was like, you gotta be fucking kidding me. Like what? So and hey, don't hate
Oh,
on me. I
oh
mean,
no, I'm
I'm
not
sure I'm
like
wrong.
later Doctor Who I liked. Early Doctor Who I never liked,
You
and I'm
tried to
sure
get
there's a
me into
lot
the
like
Eccleston.
yeah, the Eccleston stuff was fun,
I
but
couldn't do
the
it, but
yeah,
it's far and away more science fiction than like dressing up a trash
mhm.
can like a fucking robot.
But as like several Doctor Who fans would tell me, like, oh, but you gotta understand they had like this budget and they tell this story and the story's really good, and I understand that, but it is still fucking boring.
Yeah, I mean, if I only have a $5 budget and I make a movie about Hoth and I just use styrofoam, nobody should defend it by saying, "Well, he only had $5." You know. But yeah, so
But
okay,
the rest of the movie was really good. Story was
what?
really good, sir. Your
What?
Hoth story with styrofoam was really good.
No, it wasn't.
You
No,
really made that styrofoam work.
I. Oh, okay. So that's Crypto issue one.
Highly recommend. Go on by.
News from the Fallout issue one. On the
Highly
stands now.
recommend. Go on by.
And there's Drinkable Comics. Look for, well, you're not going to find this new Holland Peach thing because this is a small batch. But if you're in Michigan, you will.
Yeah. If you see it, pick it up. If you don't, no, that's on you.
Yeah. But otherwise, we'll be back soon to talk about more stuff. This is Drinkable Comics. I'm Shawn.
I'm Mike.
Hi, I'm Shawn. Join me and my friends every week for the Horror Vision, where we talk about horror movies.